Hello, everyone, and welcome. I am pumped for today's guest. We have Captain David Marquet, who is a student of leadership and organizational design, a former nuclear submarine commander, and named one of the top 100 leadership speakers by Inc. magazine. David is also the author of the Amazon #1 bestseller and one of my favorite books, Turn the Ship Around, and the Turn the Ship Around workbook. I actually started going through his most recent book, Leadership is Language. It's filled with tips on how a leader can impact and how they can actually create leaders based on how they approach conversations and how they use questions. This book is also a Wall Street Journal bestseller. I got to get some of his tips on how he does it. David imagines a workplace where everyone engages and contributes to their full intellectual capacity, a place where people are healthier and happier because they have more control over where they work, and where everyone is a leader. And you guys know that I love to say that the most important leader is the one inside you. So I'm really pumped to have this conversation with David today. Let's welcome him.
Woo-hoo.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Doing wonderful. Okay, with such success being an author, but transitioning from the leader on a submarine, how does that work? Were you just one day going to work and said, I should write this into I should make this a book?
No.
No.
Good guess. So here's what happened. I wrote my first book basically out of anger and depression. I had this amazing experience on the submarine where I thought we had done something really magic. It felt magic. Everyone was super jazzed. It's like when you're on one of those teams that everyone is just doing their thing. It's just a well-oiled machine. And in the moment, it was awesome. But what happened over the next 10 years was even more awesome, which was we kept seeing guys get promoted, and eventually 10 guys became submarine commanders. 10 officers became submarine commanders from that one group that was with me on the Santa Fe. And at the same time, the other thing that was going on was I was diagnosed with a medical condition. I had to get out of the service. And it was probably related to toxic leadership, or probably induced by toxic leadership. And at one point, my life expectancy was 7 years. This is how bad it was. And I don't really normally tell people, but because you're asking about the motivation behind the book, because people kind of get weird and feel sorry for you. I'm going to live forever now. I'm going to outlast you all, so don't worry about me. But
I'll have to get the secret of that too.
Yeah,
so that's the next episode. You let me know, because I'm feeling the creaks. I got my back pain.
Oh no, it gets better when you get older. All that stuff's going to go away. So I have, on the one hand, I'm not in the Navy anymore, which I thought I was going to be in for a little while longer, and I have this a chronic situation with my health. And on the other hand, I've had this amazing experience, which really needed a story to be told. And so, as an engineer and a physics major and a math geek and a nuclear and submarine commander, I said, well, I'm going to write a book. Or there's no reason why this would be anything that anyone would ever want to read. And I wrote it about 7 times. But I did a couple of smart things. One is I said, well, it's got to be a story. So what's a story? So I approached it like an engineer. So I read Aesop's Fables, and I read Grimm's fairy tales, and I read passages from the Bible. I was like, what? These are the oldest stories we have in humanity. Why? Like, what's resonant? What are the recurring themes and patterns in these stories? Why do these stories stick with us? And then I started blocking out my story and interviewing people, and it was a terrible book for 6 versions, because I came at it from this pedantic, hey, let me tell you, and I really wasn't vulnerable. I didn't express the panic and the fear that was in me. And I really needed that to come across. And so finally, I was so fed up with it, and my wife was fed up with me moping around the house for a year, banging away on the computer. that like sort of in this fit of desperation, I basically said, F it. And I'm just going to write what was really going on in my head.
Yeah.
Not the mask that of the brave submarine commander. And vulnerability was a key element of the success that we had on the Santa Fe. So I don't know why I kind of let go of it, but and then it kind of came together, and I was lucky. I had a connection with Simon Sinek, and he promoted me to the right people, and boom, I was off to the races.
Wow. Never would have guessed that story, by the way. And I think that in itself is powerful because I think it normalizes a lot of other people's experience when they're trying to do something and it's not working out. And maybe they're trying to use a specific voice or they don't know what voice to use. And then all of a sudden they're just like, you know what? I'm just doing it.
Right. Yeah. And it's so easy now. Well, it's so much easier now than when I did. I mean, I use otter.ai a lot now. And I'm working on a new book. So first of all, I have a partner. So if you want to write a book, first of all, if you think you have a book and you write a book, ladies and gentlemen, it's amazing. I thought it was just going to be this throwaway. I called it my 1 pound business card, basically. Yeah, it'll give me some notoriety when I go to sell some of my cultural advice. You can say asterisk. Oh, by the way, and I wrote a book. And but the process of writing really clarified a lot of things. You have to really know what you're talking about if you want to have any kind of coherent writing. Clear writing comes from clear thinking, Barbara Minto said, and it's so true. So if you can't express it clearly, you're still fuzzy on really what the story was.
So when you were writing this book, and based off of the success that you were seeing in the long term, from the submarine, from the nuclear submarine, did you go back and interview anyone? Like, what sort of research was conducted, or was it more just memory based? Like, how did you come up with your philosophies and theories on this new style of leadership that you basically developed?
Oh, so I came up with it out of fear and desperation. I was always told, and I learned, and I internalized that leaders make decisions and they get the team to do what the leaders decided they need to do. And I was really good at that. Yeah. I could look at a situation and say, oh, we need to do this, everyone do this. And then by coercion and other manipulations, get people to go along. And you had 2 questions embedded in there.
I don't try to question stack. So I'm a student
like 2,
of the philosophy.
But the other one
was, how did you conduct the research? How did you actually pull out those theories?
So you have this experience and you were there, you lived through it. But then at the end, you're trying to make sense of it all, and you're trying to really come up with, well, what was the formula like? What was the secret sauce that allowed this all to happen? And that takes some thinking. So 2 things. One, yes, I interviewed as many guys as I could get a hold of, and we basically were staying in touch, so that wasn't too hard. And then I have this sort of where are they now thing at the end of the book. I got the idea from watching Animal House, the old frat house movie with John Belushi. Anyway, and at the end it's like Plutarch's is senator or something. Anyway, the list is, there's a scroll of where everyone is. Anyway, so I interviewed people and said, how do you remember this, and what was the impact on you? I've got 2 of the guys from the Santa Fe now I work with. One of them's another keynote speaker, and the other guy basically is the head of operations for the company. So wow. They stuck around.
There was a moment in the book where you were saying how, I came in as this directive leader, do this, do that, but I was thrown into a situation where I didn't know the ship or what I was actually, I didn't have the background to do the job. And I think sometimes leaders get into a position where they know they don't have the background to do the job, And they never have that moment like you had where it's like, okay, let me empower the people below me so I can learn from them and use their expertise.
Yeah.
What does it take for a leader to realize, I guess, their own lack of knowledge, their own gaps?
Well, for me, it was very stark. I mean, I had a reputation of being a quick study, and I generally knew the answer as much as, my batting average was pretty good in terms of making decisions. And when you go to be a submarine commander, even though you've come up through the submarine force, I've been an engineer on a nuclear submarine. I've been a second in command, but still, they send you to 12 months of school to learn every single detail. I mean, you could draw the ventilation system, the piping system, the breaker, the electrical connections, the interior cutaways. I mean, it's amazing what you know. And the whole basis of all this technical knowledge is so that you can make technically correct decisions. It's encased in the idea of leader as decision maker. And then what happened was I got diverted at the very last minute to it. And one of the newest ships in the fleet, never been on this kind of submarine, all new equipment. Kind of looks the same, but not quite from the outside. But inside, every piece of equipment was new, different reactor, missiles, whatever. And I had it really messed up my head because I'm walking around. It's this weird Alice in Wonderland thing. Like, yeah, I'm the commander. Yeah, I'm supposed to give orders. Yeah, they want me to give orders. They're looking at you like, tell us what to do. And the theory's all the same. And the physics and laws of nature didn't change. But you're looking at this equipment and it's got different buttons. You don't really know what they all do. And so for me, the difference between the normal environment where I felt like I knew the answer, in this environment where I felt very clearly like I didn't, was quite stark. But the key is it's not too hard. If you don't know the answer, it's not too hard to say, hey, what do you guys think? But what I learned is that is so powerful that even when you think you know the answer, this is the secret. Even because I learned this shit. And within 6 months, I could run around and do all the things a normal captain could do in terms of telling everybody what to do if I wanted to. But I'd seen how powerful it was. Mm-hmm. And that's what I needed. And so now we call it, the traditional model is knowing and doing. I want to know the answer, knowing and telling. I want to know the answer and tell people what to do, because that feels like I'm making progress, because I'm focused on production. We're over biased on production, but it's a very short-term, non-sustainable win. And I don't recommend not knowing as a domain. So what you want to do is know but not tell. You want to be last line of defense. If the team is totally flustered and they say, "Well, we don't know. What should we try?" You say, "Okay, try this." Great. But for me, almost always, I would resist giving the answer. I'd say, well, take 5 minutes, take 30 seconds. Take 30 seconds, think about it. I get out of my chair, I put them in my captain's chair, which I always, I'm sitting in the captain's chair. And go get a cup of coffee, I come back, now, what do you think? And they're like talking like strategic geniuses. Before he was talking about, oh, my little piece, my little department needs to do this. And then I don't know why. It was something about the pause, the break, the confidence I expressed in them. And then physically putting them in the chair, I think also made a difference.
So I can hear some leaders might be saying, yeah, but I was put in this job because I am the expert and I know what to do. They are where they're at because they're supposed to do that job.
Right.
What does it do to an employee if you are able to empower them and let them choose?
They love it. Humans, it's one of the 3 basic human needs is autonomy, the ability to have a degree of control over our jobs. We've conditioned people to do what you're told. But at the core of humanity is an organism which feels like it's in charge of its own life. And when our whole fundamental structure of work for the last 500 years has basically moved away from that, where someone else tells you what to do and you tell someone else what to do. So what we can control, which is only ourselves, is way mismatched from what we're trying to control. We're trying to control somebody else. No wonder it's stressful. There was a study, Jeffrey Pfeffer out at Stanford came up with a study that said it was stress at work was the 5th leading cause of death in the United States before coronavirus. So maybe it's dropped to number 6 now. But and there's 250 billion, some huge number of lost work just due to stress from toxic workplaces. And we say, oh, but do it better. Do that toxic thing just better. And the problem is the whole model is it's got coercion built into it. And we got to throw. One day I was standing there and I was like, why do we think about people as followers? Like what? Like, look, I was a physicist, so I understand. Like there are certain laws of physics. Gravity is like I drop my phone, it's going to hit the floor. Right? Gravity, cheap and plentiful. Mm-hmm. But there are these other things that we would do. We would treat them like the laws of physics. Like you have to do what you're told. That's not a law of physics. We just made that up. Humans made that up. But we think it's a law of physics and we don't question it. And it just hit me. So why? So that's why I said we got to differentiate this. It's like not leaders and followers. There is such a thing as following, but it's following principles. We all follow principles, including the top person, the CEO. But what we end up doing in most organizations is we follow the person. And I attach my star to another rising star if I've chosen wisely, then Jack Welch brings me up through the ranks, and pretty soon I'm a senior vice president and make $500,000 a year.
What is the balance? Like how does a leader know how much they should give in terms of like their not their power away, but to give that autonomy, to give that decision making to their employees, so they are leaders?
You figure out what you think is the exact right amount, and then you give just a tiny bit more.
Yeah.
And so we love the word intent, because I would say, well, just tell me what you intend to do, because intent is it transfers a huge amount of ownership to the team. All the initiative comes from the team. I used to run around all day long going, do this. Okay, how's that going? Let me check on this. Hey, what's the status on project 225? It's exhausting. And guess what? I was stealing any job satisfaction, any sense of ownership, any sense of autonomy from the team. But I thought I was doing the right thing. Yeah. And so what you say is, well, you got a project? I'm not going to check on you. You decide when you need to come tell me what's going on. And by the way, if I finally get so worried about what's going on, then that's already a fail. If I have to call you and say, well, give me a status, that's a fail. So I had two different categories of operations. One was I called Humanon Human. We only had men on my submarine. We now have women. But I got away with saying it's man on nature. But it's human on human, and human on nature. So human on nature is starting the diesel engine, starting the nuclear reactor, loading a torpedo. You do it wrong, nature doesn't care. The bomb's going to explode. The reactor is going to overheat. So you got to be very careful about that, giving control there. But then there's human on human. How are we going to manage vacation? Who goes to the meeting? How are we going to run the meeting? Who speaks first during the meeting? What team are we going to use to start the reactor? How are they going to prepare to start the reactor? When we run the meeting, checking to see if the team is ready to start the reactor, how is that meeting going to sound? What are the exact first words that are kind of come out of the mouth of the engineer who's running that meeting? And that in that domain, you can run a lot of experiments, because no airplanes are going to fall out of the sky because of vacation policy.
Something you said, I was listening to another interview that you were in, was, the moment a leader gives their opinion is the moment and I'm not saying it by quote, but basically a leader influences by whatever they say. And how do you as a leader recognize that you're influencing by everything that you do, and you're limiting creativity and autonomy and potentially innovation within your organization?
Right. So the way to think about it is variability of thought in this case. So the first thing is you need to recognize is that the industrial age was a war on variability. Manufacturing views variability as the enemy. There's nothing worse than variability in a manufacturing process. Errors are defined as variability in the manufacturing process. Imagine like stacking up Legos, but this one, the little bumps on top, there's variability in where they're positioned. Well, it's like 1/4 inch. Well, no, 3/8. Like that wouldn't work. They wouldn't. So variability. So the industrial age was about reducing variability. Thinking benefits from variability. Innovation is variability in thinking. But what we do is we've taken this structure, which is really good at squeezing all variability out, and apply it to thinking. We're bringing a reduced variability rule set into an embrace variability game, and then we're confused why we're not getting the results. So for example, when I walk into a meeting and I say, hey guys, I think we should launch 737 Max. Look, we've done all the testing, and Airbus is getting ahead of us, and blah, blah, blah. What do you think? And then we have a short discussion. Then we all agree. I think, I gave everybody a chance to speak up. I'm sure they spoke totally freely, and everyone who didn't really think that was the right thing to do said their piece. And by the way, it's really just a CYA, because now I can say, hey, you all had a chance to speak up. But we're not genuinely interested in their opinion. Otherwise, what you would do is you would say, hey, we got this decision coming up. I want everyone to vote. You could do it anonymously or just with cards or hands sometimes. Hey, fist of 5 with your hand. How ready are we to launch this software project? 1, 2, 3, boom, right. And now what you do? You're looking for the outliers. Yeah, you're looking for the people who, and if it's safe in the group, people will vote. And then you say, oh, Benjamin, I see you have a 2. Tell us about that. And you don't feel called out. You're like, hey, thanks for letting me express my opinion. The idea is we want to hear from the outlet. Okay, how many people here think the water in Flint, Michigan is poison? Oh, no, it couldn't be poison. Then one person holds up a 1. Hey, let's hear from you. And that's the habit. That's the practice you want, because then you invite variability. And so I have a guy I coach every once in a while. Someone convinces me to coach them. Great, as a great guy, but he sends this email. He's venting. We always start the coaching with, okay, what's your vent this week? He said, I sent this email. I told everyone, hey, I think we're ready to. They're in finance. So, hey, I think we're ready to do this deal. What do y'all think? And then I got crickets back from my team. I'm like, yeah, well, they already know what the right answer is. Why do they need to respond? Mm-hmm. So first of all, it was a binary, or no, should we do the deal? It was a binary question. So I said, hey, no. Ask it in a probabilistic way. And then number 2 is don't let them know what you're thinking when you ask the question. Even if you're not the leader, someone in the group will still anchor the group.
So what is the role of a leader?
In a meeting, the role is to ensure there's equal voice. You got 6 people in a meeting. Each person should say about 1/6 of the total words. Mm-hmm. That's your job. Let every voice be heard, because now groups have a tendency to weight the information based on how many members of the group know the information, not how important the information is or who knows it. So in a meeting, is that or you want them like,
No, this is good, especially right nowadays. I think everyone's in meetings. And I think there's been an influx of meetings and the back-to-back meetings and virtual on-camera meetings. And so I think this is really interesting to say, like, so what is the purpose of the leader in a meeting? It's to give everyone an equal share of the voice and to potentially hear their ideas around specific decisions that need to be made.
Yeah, so there's different kinds of meetings. There's just an operational update meeting, which is okay. I'm just giving everybody an update of what's going on. But I'm talking about decision meeting. Should we launch the software or not? Should we stay in the business of selling DVDs or not? Whatever the decision is. These meetings are they have an outsized importance in what you do. Writ large, I'd say the leader's job is to create an environment where people can be at their best. And they're never at their best if you're telling them what to do. They're at their best when they have control. So I had a client, and they were a pharmaceutical company and they did drug testing, and they started on drug testing on animals. So they're going to do rats, rabbits, monkeys, and then chimpanzees. It's brutal work because at the end, you got to dissect the animal and cut open their brain and see what the impact of the drug was. So you have to sort of love animals to be doing this, but it's very hard work. And the people there, they had a lot of turnover, a lot of depression. And I said, well, what? They had a computer decide, like, how much control do they have? None. The computer decides, okay, you're going to go give rats their medicine for 4 hours in the morning, and then monkeys their medicine for 4 hours in the afternoon. You don't get to decide what you're going to do, but some people, particularly like the rats, they don't really interact. You just do your thing, and some people are like the monkeys because they're very interactive and they get all excited when you come in the cage. And so why can't we let people just, that's so simple. How long is the shift? 8, 12? I don't know. We decide. Of course, we have to decide that. What if someone wants to work 4 12s rather than 5 8? No, can't do that. So you just start giving people more control over their work, and they'll be healthier and happier.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of job crafting. There's this concept of learning, what's best fit for each individual employee, what type of work they like to do, who they like to work with, meaning behind their work. And then you can't find that information out if you're always telling people what to do. And this idea of giving people their space and a voice. But just, I guess the last question I have would be, let's say you're going into a work environment and, you say you need to give them the space, you need to prompt them in a way that invites communication, but there's no trust. And trust has been eroded. It's a negative work environment. What's the first thing that you would even do to intervene there?
So they don't trust you.
Yeah, they don't trust the leader at all.
Well,
I know, and it's a big question. So there's probably so many answers. It's just I see it so often.
You need to spend the next 6 months doing nothing but earning trust.
Yeah,
because it doesn't really matter. Nothing else is going to matter. So, and by the way, never say the word trust me. If you even have the slightest impulse that you want to say the word trust me, you're in serious trouble, because it means you sense they don't trust you, which means they don't trust you, which means you have not been trustworthy. Mm-hmm. So trust comes, we say the formula for building trust is transparency practiced over time. Transparency over time. You can't be super, hey guys, I had this thing, here's what really kept me up all night. Once, that's not going to work. And a little bit of transparency, going to meetings with your boss, but then not really telling everybody, you getting chewed out, but not really expressing, whatever it happens to be. And so I needed to learn a whole new language, because submarine commanders are notoriously unskilled at being vulnerable. I had to learn a language of vulnerability and uncertainty. I had to start saying things like, so what I'm worried about is blah, blah, blah. So the way this could go wrong is I'm not so sure about hey, I'm only 60% confident that we got this right. It's our best guess, and we need to do something, so let's do this. But I need everyone on watching for indications that it turns out that our key assumption, like the enemy's over there, is wrong. Mm-hmm. And I'd be open to, because now you prime the team. They're on your team. They're on your side. They're like, okay, yeah. Oh, hey, it looks like they might actually be over here. And then you know that, versus what the U.S. did when we went into Iraq was, oh no, we got it all figured out. The Iraqi people welcome us with open arms, blah, blah, blah. And then when we start getting shot at in the very first city in Al-Najaf in southern Iraq, 12 hours into it, like that lieutenant leading that Marine company, he knew that assumption was wrong. Did the Pentagon know?
What you mentioned is so powerful. That relates to this idea of you can't do anything, you can't intervene until you earn everyone's trust, and you need to almost let go of anything else. I think prior to that, that I 100% agree with that completely. And I'd like to say thank you for your time today, and I would love to open it up if our listeners want to find you, learn more about you. Where should they go?
Yeah, so we have a presence on LinkedIn. It's the Intent-Based Leadership International. We have a page. We're posting content fairly frequently. But the funnest thing probably is, there's two things. One is we have a YouTube channel called Leadership Nudges. And these are like little 1 to 2 minute little I'm ranting about some little thing or something I saw in the news. But it's in the context of what do we learn from leadership? And I try to make them short, but also actionable. Like, okay, practice this, do it this way. And then the other thing is I partnered up with Business Insider and rated a bunch of submarine movies for realism.
Fun.
Yeah, so that's on Facebook and YouTube. So if you just type in Submarine Commander rates movies, that was probably one of the more fun things I did during coronavirus lockdown.
I'm going to check both of those out. Yeah. Because do you have any final words of advice for our maybe followers and maybe leaders?
Yeah. Don't lead in the way that you think you're supposed to. Like, don't just mindlessly take the images from the movies and what maybe even you've been taught or even what's written in books and just apply it. Really understand, like, well, what kind of a leader do I want to be, and how do I want to take care of my team? I call it care, don't care. You got to care passionately about the people. You can't care about the bureaucracy and the bureaucratic consequences to yourself. You have to, and that becomes the most liberating, freeing moment. And it's not cotton candy happiness that's going to melt away in 30 minutes. It's deep satisfaction. You'll see your people grow. You will grow. You will do more and achieve more in less time. But you have to give up trying to fulfill some imprint from the Stone Age.
I'm going to have to catch you for another episode and discuss, well, what if you care too much? And kind of see that sometimes now with leaders, but for another day. Thank you for your time. This has been incredible.
Cheers.